All right, let's put the women and children to bed and go looking for dinner. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball now, setting the table for the final week before the 25-26 college basketball regular season. Want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year now. As I've been doing over the last month, we are dissecting, digesting, and offering some perspective on some of the biggest storylines to get you set for in terms of the 25-26 college basketball season. This show is no different, but this show is where you get a little bit deeper. This show is where you get a little bit bolder. So I am going to give you today 5 bold predictions for the 25-26 college basketball season. Now, with that said, these predictions are measured. These statements are calculated. This is not a hot take show. This is a show that is going to give you 5 bold predictions for the 25-26 college basketball season. Now, I've done this throughout a number of years on this beat. And some of them you get right, some of them you get wrong, but that's part of the fun of it. So without further ado, here are my 5 bold predictions for the 25-26 college basketball season. Number 1. The Big Ten and SEC will both get at least 10 teams into the 2026 NCAA tournament. Last year, as we know, the SEC set a record. 14 teams into the NCAA tournament. Prior to last season, the conference that put the most bids into the NCAA tournament in 1 year was the old Big East in 2011. The SEC got 14 of its 16 teams into the NCAA tournament last year. Now, I don't know if the SEC is again going to get 14 teams into the NCAA tournament. What I do know, the SEC is going to get at least 10. And as of today, I look at this conference and I look at the rankings I do each and every single day, the Rothstein 45. The SEC has 12 teams right now ranked in the Rothstein 45. The 4 who aren't, Georgia, Vanderbilt, LSU, and South Carolina all have the requisites to be competitive in the SEC. Vanderbilt looks like it could again be an NCAA tournament team under Mark Byington. Mike White is obviously going to have Georgia very competitive in the SEC. I know Georgia lost Silas Demery Jr. to UConn. I know it lost Asa Newell to the NBA, but still, Georgia, to me, will be competitive in the SEC. And the other teams at the bottom that did not make the NCAA tournament, LSU and South Carolina, all look like they are better than they were a year ago. On Sunday, South Carolina lost in the final seconds to NC State in an exhibition game. I know it was an exhibition game. We also have to remember it was just 2 years ago that Lamont Paris led South Carolina to a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. The guy can obviously coach. LSU on Sunday won an exhibition game against UCF. Deidon Thomas, the transfer from UNLV, was sensational for LSU in this game. 16 points, 9 assists, just 2 turnovers. Now, why am I spending so much time talking about the potential quality at the bottom of the SEC standings? It's real simple. If you are going to see a conference be formidable and capable from top to bottom, the metrics for that conference are going to be that much more effective when you're trying to get more teams into the NCAA tournament. That's what the SEC could have in store. Because I am looking now at the bottom of this league, and I'm seeing tangible improvements from the teams I mentioned. The 2 that did not make the NCAA tournament last year, LSU and South Carolina, and the 2 that are not in the Rothstein 45, Vanderbilt and Georgia. Other teams in this league that I'm keeping a close eye on that not a lot of people are talking about, one is Oklahoma under Porter Moser. Porter Moser has leaned on that transfer portal. Porter Moser is in a situation where he brought in 2 guards, Nigel Pack and Xavier Brown, one from Miami, one from St. Joe's, that give Oklahoma a chance to go to the NCAA tournament for the 2nd straight year. Oklahoma, week 1, Saturday, November the 8th at Spokane Arena against Gonzaga. So I think the SEC is not necessarily maybe going to have the power it had at the top last year with Auburn and Florida, but it's going to have maybe a league that is a little bit better from top to bottom. I'm seeing this league, and I'm seeing a number of teams, again, that will be competing at the top of the league standings. Florida, Kentucky, Arkansas, my 1, 2, 3. But the narrative for the SEC, better top to bottom, maybe, than it was last season. What about the Big Ten? This is a league last year that got 8 teams into the NCAA tournament. And I think you are going to see tangible improvements from many teams in the Big Ten Conference. If you're asking me now which Big Ten teams that did not make the NCAA tournament last year should have a chance to make it this year, I think you have to start with Ohio State with the perimeter of Bruce Thornton, John Mobley, and Devin Royal. You have to look at Danny Sprinkle in Washington as being one of the most improved teams in the sport after finishing at the bottom of the Big Ten last year. And I think you have to look at Eric Musselman at USC, again, the importer, importing enough talent to make a big jump in year 2. One of the common things that Eric Musselman has always salivated for, whether he was at Nevada, whether he was at Arkansas, is big guards that could pass, dribble, and shoot. Think about the players he's coached at some of these spots. The Martin twins at Nevada. Obviously, Anthony Black, Jalen Tate, these guys at Arkansas. Now you're seeing some of the players on USC's roster in that mold. And the number one guy you think about is Chad Baker-Mazara. I think USC has a chance to be vastly improved in year 2 under Musselman, who also added Rodney Rice as a transfer from Maryland and Jacob Kofi as a transfer from Virginia, Ezra Uzar as a transfer from Utah. And I think USC, along with Washington and Ohio State, are those teams in position to potentially compete for an NCAA tournament berth. And as of today, I've got 3 teams from the Big Ten, Purdue, Michigan, and UCLA, all in the top 7 on my Rothstein 45. Now, here's something that's interesting when you look at how the Big Ten has performed in the NCAA tournament over the last half decade in terms of the volume that it's created. 2021, 9 bids. 2022, 9 bids. 2023, 8 bids. 2024, just 6. And then in 2025, 8 bids. That means that the Big Ten has been in a situation where it has gotten a combined 40 bids to the last 5 NCAA tournaments, but only 10 of those teams have made the second weekend. That's just 25%. And as we know, the Big Ten has not won a national championship since Michigan State in 2000. That is 25 years. So bold prediction number 1, both the Big Ten and the SEC will be in a situation where they will get at least 10 teams into the 2026 NCAA tournament. Bold prediction number 2. The ACC will get at least 6 teams in the 2026 NCAA tournament. Now, the ACC has not had more than 5 teams in the NCAA tournament since 2021 in the bubble. The last number of years, this is how the bid representation has worked for the ACC, which is now an 18-team league. In 2025, last year, only 4 of the ACC's 18 teams went to the NCAA tournament. 4 out of 18. Duke, Louisville, Clemson, North Carolina. That's 22% of the conference. Not good enough. 2024, 5 teams went to the NCAA tournament from the ACC. 2023, 5 teams went to the NCAA tournament. And 2022, 5 teams went to the NCAA tournament. Now, I remind you that the ACC, for a number of years, has always performed well in the NCAA tournament. Happened in 2022 when obviously Duke and North Carolina played in the Final Four and Miami advanced to the Elite Eight. 2023, Miami went to the Final Four. 2024, NC State went to the Final Four. Obviously, Duke went to the Elite Eight, and North Carolina in 2024 was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Lost to Alabama in the Sweet 16. But with that said, when you look at the overall percentage of the league that got into the NCAA tournament, the ACC, if you're looking by percentage right now, last year got 22.2% of its teams into the NCAA tournament. And in 2024, 2023, and 2022, it only got 1/3 of the conference in, 33%. So even if the teams were performing well in the bracket, you were still getting between 22 and 33%. This conference needs more representation in the NCAA tournament, and I think it will get it. So which ACC teams are on the radar to make the NCAA tournament? Right now, I have in my top 45 Duke, Louisville, North Carolina, NC State, and Miami as ranked teams in the Rothstein 45. Beyond that, Virginia, Notre Dame, SMU, Syracuse, all in contention to be in the NCAA tournament. One big narrative change for the ACC, and it's been something, again, that has been a major part of this league in terms of its focal points in bold print, has been the presence that Brad Brownell has had at Clemson. Now, I know that Clemson lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament last season to McNeese. But with that said, Clemson for 2 years has been a mainstay of this conference. 2 years ago, Clemson was a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament, advanced all the way to the Elite Eight before losing to Alabama. And during that run, beat New Mexico, who won the Mountain West Conference tournament, beat Baylor in Memphis, and also beat Arizona in the Sweet 16 in Los Angeles. Clemson has been a consistent presence in the ACC. And in talking to Brad Brownell in the preseason and looking at the roster, I just don't think you're going to see Clemson at the level that it's been at the last couple of years. But I'm looking at 9 teams right now in the ACC that have a chance to go to the NCAA tournament. The expected teams obviously will be there: Duke, Louisville, Carolina, NC State. Jay Lucas has done a really, really good job building a roster in his first year at the University of Miami. Trey Donaldson from Michigan, True Washington from New Mexico. Obviously, people are excited about Shelton Henderson, the talented freshman, Malik Renew from Indiana, Ernest Uday from TCU. That is a roster, at least on paper, that should be in the mix for an NCAA tournament berth. I was in Charlottesville in the preseason. Ryan Odom has a team that's in position to be in position. Watched them against Villanova in an exhibition game last Friday night. Dallin Hall has gone from BYU to Virginia at the point. He has also added a number of really, really good mid-major transfers. Sam Lewis from Toledo, Malik Thomas from San Francisco, and Jakari White from North Dakota State. Those guys will take up the spot on the wings. And then you have Testa Ritter and Johan Grunlow up front from overseas. Virginia, in my opinion, will be the 4th school that Ryan Odom leads to the NCAA tournament. It could happen as early as 2026. Notre Dame under Micah Shrewsbury is in position to make a jump. Marcus Burton, Braden Shrewsbury back in the backcourt. Jalen Harrelson, a talented freshman, is also incoming. It feels like Notre Dame is ready for a year 3 jump. And it feels like SMU might be in the mix for a year 2 jump under Andy Enfield. Now, if you look at Andy Enfield's career, and if you look at obviously his run as a Division I coach at Florida Gulf Coast, gets to the NCAA tournament, takes Dunk City to the Sweet 16, beats Georgetown in 2013, who won the Big East regular season title, then beats San Diego State in the second round, goes to USC, takes USC to the Elite Eight in 2021, where it lost to Gonzaga, and leaves USC with more NCAA tournament wins than any other coach really in the history of that program. Now he goes to SMU. SMU was a very chalky team last year, won the games it was supposed to win, but you never really felt like they were a real threat on the bubble. Now, all of a sudden, with Boopy Miller back, with the addition of Jacksonville State transfer Jaron Pierre, you feel like you have a team at SMU that could be a 9, 10, 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. SMU, again, when it was rolling 10 years ago under Larry Brown, was a really fun story in college basketball. We will see if Andy Enfield can turn things in year 2. And obviously, Syracuse is a program that the ACC has not gotten major mileage out of in the last half decade. Syracuse has not been to the NCAA tournament since it was an 11 seed in 2021 in the bubble in Indianapolis, and it went to the Sweet 16. And if you're looking now at the reasons why the ACC has taken the dip that it's taken, there's a number of reasons to look at it. Number one, if you are going to be a conference that's going to resonate nationally, you have to get mileage out of your best brands. Virginia has not won an NCAA tournament game since winning the national title in 2019. Notre Dame, since 2017, has been to the NCAA tournament one time. One time. Syracuse and Florida State have not been to the NCAA tournament since 2021. So if you're looking at the ACC right now, I'm giving you 9 teams. Duke, Louisville, Carolina, NC State, Miami, Virginia, Notre Dame, SMU, Syracuse. 9 teams. As the ACC will get 6 or more of those teams into the NCAA tournament. And if you get 6, you have then a third of your conference into March Madness. That has to be the absolute bottom for this conference if it wants to regain respectability. Because right now, make no mistake about it, in terms of the national perception of the ACC, they are way behind the SEC. They are way behind the Big Ten and also behind the Big 12. The third bold prediction in this show, and you've heard me talk about it ad nauseum in spurts. St. John's and UConn will play 4 times during the 25-26 college basketball season. Twice in the regular season, 1 time in the Big East tournament, and 1 time in the NCAA tournament. And that will occur in the 2026 Final Four in Indianapolis. And just think about what that could look like if there is a 4th meeting in the Final Four between Rick Pitino and Dan Hurley. Think about that, what that would look like. You start thinking about the great one-on-one showdowns that we have seen in history. Ali and Frazier, Tyson and Holyfield. Throw Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior from WrestleMania 6 in there as well. It would be as colossal a Final Four showdown as we've seen. Now, both teams, St. John's and UConn, which are going to open the season ranked in the top 10, are going through their own, obviously, little bit of hiccups early in the season. Braylon Mullins, the 5-star freshman for UConn, is out. It looks to be a month and a half. 6 weeks was the original diagnosis. He was slated in to be a starter at the wing. Tarris Reed, UConn's all-Big East center, is dealing with a hamstring issue. He's obviously missed a great deal of time during the preseason. St. John's, I went to obviously see them during the preseason. The Red Storm were very disjointed in its first preseason game against Towson, played significantly better last Saturday against Michigan at the Garden. Even though St. John's did not win that game, you could see if you watch both games the tangible growth in 7 days under Rick Pitino. But I firmly believe that a higher power is bringing these 2 programs and these 2 coaches together. And they probably could be good friends, Dan Hurley and Rick Pitino, but they're better enemies. Friendship is not in the cards. And I've said this throughout multiple shows here on Inside College Basketball Now. Once again, the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. I've said this on multiple shows. Right now, unequivocally, the burgeoning rivalry in college basketball is between St. John's and UConn. And I think unequivocally now, if we're looking at the 2 most anticipated regular season games, it would be the 2 meetings between St. John's and UConn. Now, we can look at other non-conference games that are going to be intriguing, and you could look at the 2 teams involved in the dialogue that I'm speaking about right now. Is it going to be exciting to see UConn go to Kansas and to see UConn go against Darren Peterson and Allen Fieldhouse? Absolutely. Is it going to be exciting to see UConn against Florida, the last two national champions, in the Jimmy V Classic in Madison Square Garden? It's going to be awesome. What about Rick Pitino taking on Kentucky in the CBS Sports Classic when he goes mano a mano with his former captain, Mark Pope, on the Saturday before Christmas on CBS? That's going to be great. But nothing compares to St. John's and UConn. Not now. Because rivalries are at their best when you see tension, when you feel anxiety, when you feel the heat. And that's what's going on right now for St. John's and UConn. Because let's look right now at what Dan Hurley has built at UConn. The start of the 22-23 season, UConn was ripping through teams like a chainsaw through butter. A chainsaw through butter. There was a little bit of a hiccup in January. UConn then goes into the NCAA tournament, runs through 6 games, beats Miami and San Diego State in the Final Four, wins a national championship. So you lose off that team Andre Jackson, the Swiss Army knife of college basketball, Jordan Hawkins, and Adama Sanogo. And then Dan Hurley comes back the next year, and what does he do? He goes 37-3. Rips through the NCAA tournament again like a chainsaw through butter. Alabama in the Final Four, no problem. Zach Edey and Purdue in the Final Four, wasn't that competitive or nerve-wracking down the stretch. Then Dan Hurley is offered the chance to coach the Los Angeles Lakers after the season, opts to stay at UConn, where he will obviously go into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame as UConn's coach. Already won 2 national championships in the most dominant form we've seen in the modern era. But for 2.5 years, the bold print was on UConn. Last year, things changed. Last year, things looked a little bit different because Rick Pitino did something that hadn't been done in 40 years. He led St. John's to a Big East regular season title, and he led St. John's to a Big East tournament title. St. John's had not won a Big East regular season title since 1985. The last year went to the Final Four, and it didn't win a Big East tournament title since 2000. Now the stakes are higher. And Dan Hurley, who was in studio on this show during the preseason, said it best. When someone is trying to take what's yours, you're probably not going to like that person. And that's what we have now. You have 2 Hall of Fame coaches. You have 2 coaches that have each won multiple national championships. You have major media markets. You have major brands. And I think it's destiny for St. John's and UConn to not just play 2 times, to not just play a 3rd time on a Saturday night in March at Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament title, but to play a 4th time in the NCAA tournament, and the 4th time would happen at the Final Four in Indianapolis. It would be as colossal a showdown as we have seen in the Final Four in quite some time. But you know as well as I do, this is only October. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
All right, Jon Rothstein back here on Inside College Basketball Now. I want to remind you, subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. Once again, we are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. All right, we are continuing with our bold predictions, or my bold predictions, for the 25-26 college basketball season. Bold prediction number 4, Arkansas will win the SEC regular season title. And I got to tell you, I saw the SEC preseason poll at SEC Media Day, and I saw where Arkansas was slotted, the 5 spot. And I said, you know what? This is not an oversight. It's a flat-out insult. And I looked at who had the highest percentage of returning scoring among SEC teams entering the 25-26 season. And it was Arkansas. And I think about the fact that John Calipari has 4 guys back. Trevin Brazile, Carter Knox, DJ Wagner, and Billy Richmond from last year's team that went to the Sweet 16 and lost a heartbreaker to Texas Tech. And I think about the fact that the SEC, in a lot of ways, has seen a bit of a passage when it comes to personnel. Look at the dynamics we have right now. Florida lost the guts of its perimeter. Walter Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah Martin, gone. Tennessee lost Zakai Ziegler, Jemai Mashak, and Chaz Lanier. Alabama lost Grant Nelson, Cliff Amori, and Mark Sears. Auburn, with the exception of Tahad Pettiford, lost the majority of its team. Kentucky obviously lost a number of players from last year's team that went to the Sweet 16. The retention favors Arkansas. And what about what Arkansas added? And again, I just take the inventory I saw, but looking at what I saw from Arkansas's exhibition game, and I'm the first person to tell you that you have to take exhibition games with a grain of salt. But I'll say this, I'd be shocked if Darius Acuff is not one of the best freshmen in college basketball and one of the best guards in the ACC. I'd be shocked if Malik Thomas is not one of the best newcomers in the SEC. And I'll tell you what, the two guys that Arkansas added up front, Nick Pringle, who has SEC experience from both South Carolina and Alabama. He looks in great shape, by the way. And Malik Ewan from Florida State are going to make a major impact for this team. And part of it is, I think, we are sometimes accustomed to go by what somebody does in the NCAA tournament. And I completely understand that. And I think that's why so many people have given John Calipari an unfair rap when you look at what he did at Kentucky. And I get that. I understand there was frustration by Kentucky's lack of NCAA tournament success at the end. 2024, obviously, was the Oakland loss in the first round with a team that, could have went to the Final Four and competed for a national title. 2023, you lost to Kansas State. And obviously 2022, you were a 2 seed and lost to St. Peter's. I understand that. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson right now. John Calipari gets there in 2010, goes to the Elite Eight. 2011 goes to the Final Four. 2012 goes to the Final Four. 2013, you have the Nerlens Noel injury. Kentucky obviously doesn't have the season it wants, misses the tournament. There was bad point guard play in that team. 2014, you go to the national championship game, lose to UConn. 2015, 38-1 Final Four, lose to Wisconsin. 2016, lose to Indiana in round 2 with Jamal Murray. 2017, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Bam Adebayo. You're in a situation where you lose on a buzzer beater to Luke May in North Carolina in the Elite Eight. 2018, a disappointing loss to to Kansas State in the Sweet 16. PJ Washington was like 10 of 25 from the foul line in that game. 2019, losing overtime to Auburn in the Elite Eight. I know there's frustration among all of that. I know there's frustration that Kentucky only won one national title. But I'll say this, Kentucky in 2010, 11, 12, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19. 8 times, roughly, in a 10-year stretch, had a team that was good enough to go to the Final Four. I know that things did not always go their way. I understand that. But what I'm saying is this. What that guy has been able to do as a coach throughout a Hall of Fame career at UMass, at Memphis, at Kentucky, and now at Arkansas should not be undervalued. Because I always say this because I think it's important to provide separation. I might go to 30, 35 practices a year. I might have been doing this for 20 years now. This is going to be year 17 at CBS, I believe. I'll check my math later. I've been doing this a really long time, but I am not a coach. But last year, when Arkansas lost Boogie Fland and was 0-5 in the SEC, I remember listening to Jay Wright, who's a Hall of Fame coach and a 2-time national champion, saying, this is the best coaching job of John Calipari's career. And one of the things that I look at when I think about the great teams that John Calipari has had throughout his coaching career is dynamic point guard play. Derrick Rose at Memphis, Tyreek Evans at Memphis, John Wall, Brandon Knight, Marcus Teague, Andrew Harrison, Tyler Ulis, De'Aaron Fox at Kentucky. Darius Acuff is somebody that looks like he has the ability to take a seat at the table in that conversation. And if you add him next to DJ Wagner, Carter Knox, who in the last 2 NCAA tournament games last year for Kentucky had 35 and 12, Trevin Brazil, who the Arkansas staff loves, Billy Richmond, one of the best defenders in the country nobody's talking about. I don't understand why Arkansas isn't being talked about as not just a threat to win the SEC regular season title, but a threat to be a dark horse team of the Final Four and earn one of the top 16 seeds on Selection Sunday. To me, Arkansas will be a 4 seed or better on Selection Sunday, and Arkansas will win the 25-26 SEC regular season title. And we're going to close it out with this. San Francisco will earn an at-large berth to the 2026 NCAA Tournament. If you look at the history of this program, we know it's produced quality head coaches. Kyle Smith at Washington State and Stanford, Todd Golden, obviously at Florida, the head coach of the national champion Florida Gators. Chris Gerlofson was promoted to replace Todd Golden when Todd Golden got the Florida job, and he's been knocking at the door for a long time. And the thing that's going to separate Chris Gerlofson and San Francisco is making the NCAA tournament. And in being somebody who is a schedule fiend and loves to study and dissect different schedules and the makeup of those schedules, San Francisco has put itself in position to get an at-large berth into the NCAA tournament. And if you say that can't happen, don't forget, in 2022, San Francisco was able to get a 10 seed in an at-large berth when Todd Golden was the coach. These are the games that San Francisco has, in addition to 4 regular season games against Gonzaga and St. Mary's, which you know have a chance to be 4 quad 1 opportunities. On November 8th, San Francisco is going to play at Memphis at FedEx Forum. On the 15th, Bradley, a very good program at the mid-major level, is coming to play San Francisco, Northern California. At the Sanford Pentagon on November 22nd, there's a neutral site game against Minnesota. Then in Palm Springs, you are going to see, as part of the Acrisure Classic, Colorado, Big 12 school on a neutral court. And then in the second day, either Nevada or Washington. Really good games for San Francisco. At worst, those games should be quad 2 games. December 7th in Tupelo, Mississippi, Chris Gerlofson and company are going to go to play Mississippi State in a neutral site game. That should be a quad 1 opportunity. There's a road game on December 13th at St. Louis. That should be a quad 1 opportunity. Loyola Chicago at home on December the 17th. That should be at worst a quad 2. There is an infrastructure in place for San Francisco to be a team that can build an at-large resume to the NCAA tournament. I just gave you their non-conference schedule. I also hit that San Francisco 4 times will play St. Mary's or Gonzaga. I saw San Francisco last week in Vegas during WCC Media Day. Tyrone Riley should be an all-West Coast Conference player. Obviously, Ryan Beasley is back in the backcourt. There's a number of talented transfers that are coming in. Mookie Cook from Oregon. Also, David Fuchs, a really good player from Rhode Island. There is an infrastructure and a foundation in place for San Francisco to join Gonzaga and St. Mary's as a team that can earn a third bid of the West Coast Conference for the 2026 NCAA tournament. Everything is in front of the Dons. But as Morgan Freeman said in The Shawshank Redemption circa 1994, get busy living or get busy dying. Want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball now on both Apple and Spotify. Once again, we are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this was Inside College Basketball Now.